Aisha asked me whether I would do a quick demo of this green papaya ferment. Now I'm just going to first say cautionary note, not eaten by pregnant women.
See you later.
Definitely have it after bagels. Paleo recipes, you know, they're from Queensland and New South Wales. And the one is a midwife, and her recipe said it could induce miscarriage.
Oh,
so there's obviously some enzyme in here that is a little bit.
Yeah.
So there you go. So I don't know the science behind it, but just a cautionary note. So it is on the recipe as well. But it's something to look forward to once you've had your baby. It's delicious. So Tony was asking how long I've been doing ferments for, and it's been a long time, probably about 10 years. I got into it because a really dear friend who lived in Adelaide said, this is the wave of the future, and she sort of told me how to make a basic sauerkraut, and I tried it, and I really started to feel the benefits. So I make them quite regularly. They store in the fridge forever. So if you make a big jar and you don't eat a lot of it, you know, you can keep it for months, even years. Like it just continues giving. The longer it stays, the more beneficial bacteria develops in it, and the more the nutrient value increases and the antioxidant value increases. So it's just a wonder food. Does anyone here do any ferments? You do?
Well, I've tried and haven't for a while because of wet season. They never work in wet season.
Oh, really?
Mine always go like real.
Yeah, bacteria gets in real quick.
Really?
Yeah, and I always fail in wet season, but dry season.
Oh, I'm just that. But
What are you fermenting?
Normally like cabbage or
Like kimchi?
kimchi, yeah.
wow.
Our we were in a unit and it was so hot and it just heated up
Oh.
real quick when we went home.
Yeah.
And you could just tell like after, and I probably I think I failed easier in wet season because if I hadn't sterilised perfectly, there was no
there's no
yeah.
So I'm really pedantic about my sterilising. So I'll tell you what I've done with this morning. So it's a clean jar that I've then put in my oven at about 120 degrees. And I've left it there for about half an hour. And then the rubber bit I've put in some water and boiled in a pot. And then taken it out and let it dry. So I'm quite pedantic about that. I haven't really ever had any problems with my ferments, but I don't necessarily keep them out for long because of the heat. 3 days max, probably. You can go for longer, but if your house is warm, you might find 1 day or even 2 is enough.
Right.
So, I do sourdough bread. 37 degrees is the temperature in my kitchen.
Yes.
So, I don't know, because I don't use aircon, so
It's
that's
got
better. Permanently, really. It just gets pulled out to put in the oven.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do have to adapt, I guess, to the environment. So you're right, though, is you can ferment for longer on your counter in the dry. So look, this is a really simple ferment, and there's so much abundant produce at this time of the year. So these are, I just shredded these this morning. I'm lazy, so I don't do a hand shred. I've got a
Mandolin.
words. I've just got a food processor, just like a KitchenAid food processor that just shreds. It's really quick because when you peel these, they go really quite sticky and slimy. So it's really, I think if you were grating, you'd be grating fingers. So I prefer to do it this way, but whatever works for you. So this is 2 papayas, probably one about that size and one a little bit smaller. This one I made 2 weekends ago, and the papaya was starting to get ripe, so that's why it's got that orange colour. And different varieties, so you'll see in here I've got a white and an orange colour coming through. But it doesn't matter. You don't want them too ripe though, because they just won't shred nicely, and then they're not as sort of nice and crispy and crunchy when you make the ferment. So there you can have a look. It's already started to create a bit of liquid, which is good. You want to put that liquid.
What did you just add that to, sorry? Or did you just
It's just shredded. I just put it in a bigger bowl.
I missed a step.
Only because this bowl has a lid and this one doesn't, so it's easier to
Okay.
always has to be an easy way to do things. So it's really simple ingredients. So I think there's a double winner out of this because when you make it, it's really delicious to eat as a salad immediately, and you can ferment it. So to me, you get two options out of one bit of effort. So just a chopped and sliced brown onion, nothing special. You can chop it any way you want it. That goes in. Coriander, so a nice big handful of coriander. You can use the roots, you can use the stems. I put a bit of stems and a bit of leaf. It just depends how, aesthetically it doesn't look as good with the roots in, but flavour-wise it's good. So it's entirely up to you how you want to play that one. So that's in there. And then, so chili is to your taste. This is 4 tiny little local chilies. I don't know how hot they are, I forgot to taste them. It could be fiery hot, it might be quite mild, but to your taste, I'm going to put the whole lot in because I love chili. And then some grated ginger. Now I'm lazy with ginger. I always pre-mince it and put it in my freezer. It's a lot easier to just, when you've got it when you need it. So this is just straight out of my freezer. So 2 teaspoons, more or less. I'm a bit of a more or less person. And then the lime juice, the recipe says 2 teaspoons. I find it's quite nice with a bit more than that, but it's to your taste. So I'm just going to squeeze this one because this is going to give me about probably 2 tablespoons out of this really good juicy lime. So that's quite yummy. I like that acidity. Does anyone have any questions while I'm squeezing?
Just going back to the, I'm a complete beginner, stuff like this, and you said you put the jar in the oven. Can you put any jars in the oven, or does it have to be a specific type?
It must be glass, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't put anything other than glass. I like these maison lids. I know when fermenting first sort of became popular, a lot of people had, with the pipette lids and all that. I've never used any of those. I've always just used a maison lid. Why I like these is because they, the biggest risk is that your jar explodes, that it builds up enough pressure and it just explodes. So a couple of things to stop the explosion. One is you can put it into an esky, and then if it explodes in an esky and not in your grocery cupboard or in your crockery cupboard. The other thing is, these lids, I think they do give there's a little bit of breathing that can happen. So if they do start to build up, sometimes the water actually builds up and bubbles out, and that can at least get out here. But you can also burn it. But my advice is always put your hand on it because it builds up a lot of pressure, then release it, and just let it burn ever so slightly and then close it again. I don't ever open it for you. Just a quick little release of pressure and then close it again and leave it. So you can do that, you can check it every day, especially if it's hot. You might want to just burp it a little bit. And that's my sort of fail-safe method. You mustn't forget them, because I have had friends forget them in their cupboards, and suddenly there's a massive explosion and there's sauerkraut. So don't do that, that's not advisable.
Sorry, I have one question. Might sound silly. You're talking about it as papaya. I've always called it pawpaw. What's the difference?
Probably Brendan, you're probably best skilled at answering this, but I believe that they're different varieties, aren't they?
One's more yellow, one's more orange.
Yeah.
So papaya's more sweet than orange.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Or was it just eggplant and aubergine?
No, I think it's not different. It's a bit of
There's a red one
difference.
and an orange one.
Yeah.
the red-
Pawpaw's
red.
nice.
Yeah. My understanding was always, I remember growing up, pawpaws, I think when they green are more of the white colour, and the papaya is more of that red. So I think there are different varieties, but I don't know, I could be wrong. Check
She's
it out.
gonna Google it.
This is, it's a clean wash jar, just in the oven for like 20 minutes. It's not a very hot oven, but it does heat. I mean, this does get hot. Alright, and then the last ingredient is just a bit of really good quality sea salt. I do generally use Himalayan pink salt, but I didn't actually have any at home today, but I found this one. So this is just a really rustic Celtic salt. You don't want more than what's required. In fact, I almost think that's a bit much, because this is really salty salt, if that makes sense. Now my method is hands in, and we do a bit of massaging. So let me just show you what it looks like now. Can you smell the smells? It's just delicious. So just a nice little mix to get it all thoroughly in there, and a bit of a squeeze. So it's also quite therapeutic.
Does it start letting juice out?
Yes. So I shredded this early this morning, and it's already started to release some juice from that process, and you can hear the squish.
Yeah.
That's delicious.
So I've got one of those
Smells
hand things from Wings.
Wings,
You know, the little scraper that does all, they're good.
What is it?
It's, if you want to, whatever it is, chop that up, you can go Wings, and it's really for pawpaws, isn't it?
Yeah,
And also
ask
skin
for a
ones.
pawpaw grater.
Pawpaw grater.
Oh,
So
okay.
that hand thing, and it's just, and it's good, and it does it in
Send
juice.
you mandolin.
I never seen that.
Yeah, at Wings.
Now this is my other little fabulous tool. It's a cocktail drink muddler. So to make your cocktails and your mojitos, but it's equally perfect for this. So you can give it a nice few smashes. Tables of three.
The table flips.
Put the bowl in
Flips
the
in the middle.
That's what makes it taste so good, flipping tables.
It's all that risk from me.
So you do smash it up very hard.
Yeah, not too hard. I do more of a bash on sauerkraut than I do on this, because this is quite soft already. But we just wanted to make sure you're getting some of that liquid out. I reckon that's probably good. So then it's just as simple as we just load it into the jar. So I'm really messy when it comes to this. I never do it very, very well.
And can you just eat that now?
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have that as a salad now. So I'll leave some out so you can taste it.
It's nice. So once you only push it down, and once you've had that jar full, like how long would you leave it?
About 3 days.
3 days in that atmosphere.
3 days. I generally put them in a dark cupboard.
Yeah.
But you can do it under a tea towel in a kitchen plant if you want.
And where do you get your jars from?
Most of mine, so this one's an IKEA jar. A lot of my others are, I bought them from a kitchen warehouse, and they just post to you. So it's pretty good.
I'm pretty sure Wings is.
Yeah.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
You just want to make sure though that you get good quality ones. So the ones I use are generally the European ones, the Italian ones, because they're thicker. They're thicker glass. I made the mistake of buying ones at Green Dot years ago. They are so thin, and I just don't trust them under pressure. So I'll leave some of this out for you to taste it, but I just want to show you what I do when it goes into the jar. This is an anaerobic ferment, which means you actually want no air bubbles in the actual ferment itself. So you want to really compact it. So this also works well with that. So I'm just kind of pushing it down. You see there is a little bit of liquid popping out now. Okay, then there's a few more steps, believe it or not. So, because you want to keep that totally under the liquid for the fermentation process. I didn't have a nice big cabbage tube, so I'm going to have to use a tube to make sure it fits the cabbage. I just use a regular cabbage tube. I would imagine, I've only ever used cabbage, but I would imagine you could use some sort of baking paper that would probably work as well, but I like the idea of something more natural. Banana leaf? That probably would work. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Worth a try. Worth a try. So, what you want to do is really use that to kind of really push it down. And just a lot more of the liquid on top of that. So if you do get a bit of mold, and sometimes this bit does get a bit moldy.
This is where I go wrong in wet season, and sometimes little bits float up later.
Oh, that's fine, that's float up. So all you do is just pull out this, when you pull this cabbage leaf out, if it is a little bit moldy, you just turf it. It hasn't impacted the stuff underneath.
Okay, yeah.
So just the mouldy bit you do.
Yeah, just the top bit of, so you can, if you're worried, you can just like layer it on.
Yeah.
Just layer it for as long as you like as thick as you like.
If you're really game, you can eat it too.
I'm
Really,
I'll bring it
yeah.
round to the place.
And then my other little trick is, these are little glass tea light holders from Red Dot. Fantastic as a weight. Because they always fit in. There you go. So can you see all that liquid? So my ferment is well and truly under that liquid now.
So where does the bacteria come from?
It's
On the
naturally
plant,
occurring bacteria,
It's
so
in
within the actual food itself, but also in the environment. Yeah. So this is a wild ferment.
So is your ferment going to taste different to my ferment?
Probably. Anyone, yeah. And look, one of the tricks I learned years ago, because at one stage I was doing my ferments, I was doing sourdough bread on the side, I was doing milk kefir, and they contaminated each other. Yeah. I didn't realise you actually have to keep them quite far apart from each other in the kitchen. Yeah. So if you do kombucha or anything like that, just make sure it's at another part of the kitchen. Although this is sealed, so you shouldn't have a problem with this, but yeah, I did lose a few batches of milk kefir grains and things like that because of that. But look, I think if you follow the recipe, you're going to get a similar, every time you make it, it's going to taste a little different, depending on the ripeness of your papaya, the juiciness of your limes, the ginger, like all those ingredients. But it's just an adventure, isn't it? Like whatever it tastes like, it doesn't really matter because it's always delicious. The longer you keep it in your fridge, the more the flavours will develop as well. So you'll start when you first eat it, you're like, oh yeah, that's got that sort of flavour. And then a week later, it's got a slightly more complex flavour and it just continues to do that. And then by the time you're at the end of the job, you go, oh my god, it's so delicious. So yeah, so that's it basically. Now that will just ferment for 3 days.
And how often do you burp it?
I'll probably burp that maybe
Each day?
tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll give it a burp in about 24 hours. But as I said, it's just a little release of the, you don't even have to open it, you can just literally release like that and close. Simple as that.
And just once, not like 3 times, just one all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't technically even have to burp it. I'm always worried about this
You want to
gracious
say
stuff.
anything.
Yeah.
Have you ever put kaffir lime leaves in there?
I don't think I have actually. No. You'd want to make sure they're shredded quite finely, otherwise they could be quite
Yeah, just to
hard
give that
to
sort of
eat.
flavour.